What it do, everybody? I Wear Ears here, and you are watching Games. Or, if you want to make Stan Lee proud, G to the 3. It's Thursday morning, which means yesterday's comics have been released. This week has left us with a lot of issues to thumb through. Now let's get on with business and break down the books. But first, the place you can find me. If you want to go ahead and find me on Facebook or follow me on Twitter, go ahead and look for me by typing in I Wear Ears Games. Or if you're more of a visual person, you want to check out my Instagram account, go ahead and head over to instagram.com/iwearears. You don't need an account to check out my photo feed, just an account to comment and follow. But make sure you subscribe right now. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way you can get comics and cereal every Thursday morning. I do the spoiler-free review every Thursday, so be sure to tune in. And also make sure that you tune in because this Saturday I have a very special message. So if you don't hit that subscribe button, you won't get that message. Also be sure to check out later. Today we actually have Grand Theft Thursday. Now I have a special plan for that as well. Now let's go ahead and get into the first book. Now I'm going to go ahead and leave the DC books for last. So first up, we are going to start off with The Wake. The series is just 10 issues. It's going to be by Scott Snyder, and then I forget who the artist is. The last name is Murphy, but Scott Snyder really can get me to read anything. I'm actually reading Superman Unchained. Not too big of a Superman fan up until this series came out. Well, not The Wake, but his Superman series. But getting back to The Wake, this week I give it a 7. Not much happened in the issue compared to the previous. A con of it was that we are in the middle of the series. This is book 4 of 10, so I'm just worried that they're going to take something that would happen in one issue and spread it out into 3, just because they want to get a little bit more of a story out. So moving on into Marvel, we have Guardians of the Galaxy. That as well got a 7, just because I felt like I missed a tie-in issue. Pretty up to date on what's tied in and crossovers and things of that sort, so not too sure what happened there. But a good pro to the issue is that they do have a new woman in the story. And that's important because there are so many males, all these characters, it's so dominating. And then there's Rocket Raccoon. Can't forget him. Also, a good thing about it is that Thanos is actually starting to make more of a presence in the storyline. I was wondering, just because his daughter is one of the Guardians, so I was wondering when he was going to pop up. Maybe it's because of the Marvel films. That's definitely why I started to pick up Guardians of the Galaxy. Moving on into DC, Injustice, Gods Among Us, that's going to be another 7. We had some pretty average books this week. A good thing about this series is that the art does change up quite a bit from week to week, but it can be a little jarring sometimes if you, say you skip a week, so you go from one issue to the next back to back, and it does switch art. It can be a little weird on the eyes, at least for me. But right now, if you aren't too familiar with the story, or if you haven't played the game, it's basically all of the superheroes basically have split up into 2 teams, and they are basically kind of pitted against each other because they have different beliefs. And right now there are different team divides, so they're starting to swap sides, and it's interesting to see that. Also, the story is starting to make a different change I was not expecting, so things are starting to happen I really wasn't trying to foresee. I guess they have to move on with the story in a different direction eventually, but I just wasn't expecting it to go in the way it is now. Now, I am trying to keep this as spoiler-free as I can, but you never know what may pop out of my mouth. Killer Croc, moving on. Now, right now, this is the last week of Villains Month. So, right now, each week, a villain, 52 in total, got their own issue from each series. So, like Batman and Robin, Batman itself, what else? Justice League of America, and so on. They all had villains they each had their own showcase. It was kind of like a 0 issue for each of the villains. Killer Croc, I give a score of an 8, so he came up a little bit higher. He was one of the stronger villain issues. It was definitely top 3. A good thing about this issue is that he was a villain that's showcased that isn't hellbent on taking over a city or some kind of land, or he's also not trying to kill like a million people all at once. And the issue covered a good amount of story without actually creating content just to fill pages, so the things that were said were actually meant to be there. A con, though, is that Croc really isn't used in the storylines. I would rather see him as opposed to some of the less dynamic villains that are spotlighted in some of the series. Moving on to Man-Bat, he was a strong issue, but not as strong as Killer Croc, so I went ahead and gave that one a 7.5. The stories of Man-Bat were actually in the back issues, the back of issues, I should say, and they kind of all led up to this, so I was just a little, like, this was the finale for it? Maybe we'll have to see more, but, without giving too much away, obviously he is a villain, but he doesn't start off so much the total villain of the story, but the way he goes from a villain to extreme villain just goes a little bit too fast, and I think it's kind of like DC's commentary on addiction, well, at least the writer's commentary on addiction. I don't think it was really done too well, but it did leave it in the top 3 for strongest villains issues of the week. Moving on is going to be Ocean Master, which is definitely going to be top 3 as well. So there we go, we got top 3 of Ocean Master, Man-Bat, and Killer Croc. Who'd have thought, right? So Ocean Master went ahead and gave a 7.5 as well. Ocean Master is kind of interesting. Or is he? They kind of throw in enough twists to make him interesting without his personality being interesting. They make his plot interesting and not so much Ocean Master, the character, I feel. Not really sure where the issues can go, just with the way they left Aquaman before Trinity War, the way they're leaving Ocean Master, and the way they left Black Manta, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see the way all of that happens. His alliance with his race of Atlanteans, I feel, makes him evil, and not because of the things he does. Well, the things he does is a little weird, but that's just because he's looking after his people, and I feel the way us humans look at him, there is no compassion, so we feel that he is a villain. Moving on to Secret Society. I didn't really pay too much attention when I was reading the issue, so when I finally focused in on a couple pages towards the end, I was like, huh? So I actually had to go back and reread. So I was still left a little confused after I actually tried to recap. Once I closed that back cover, I was still scratching my head a little bit. So I went ahead and gave that one, did I already say what I gave that one? If anything, if I did, I'm going to say it again. I gave that one a 6.5. So that one was a little bit weak. But moving on to Doomsday, a little disappointed, so I had to give that one a 6. I was actually looking forward to that one because it's from the Batman Superman series, and that series, it's good, but you're kind of like, maybe I should take it off my pull list, and then at the very last second, it'll have this redeeming quality, and you're like, oh, this is great, this is brilliant, I want to find out what happens next. But this book did not do it this time. So I was definitely looking forward to continuing the series. I was definitely a little mad that the whole book was a flashback, and it still didn't fill my crave of wanting the story that I had when I finished the last issue, because you know how it always goes, continued in, and it told me continued in this issue, but it really wasn't a continuation. And then coming up after that, I think, was the weakest book of all, and that is going to be Black Adam. That was definitely going to be a 4. I gave that one a score of a 4. This week, I would say Black Adam is this week's Dial H. Dial H, if you did not see that one, definitely not too sure what happens in that issue, and I read some other reviews about having Dial H last week, and they said that they didn't understand why DC actually used it for somebody who's not the current reader and understands Dial H. So jumping into it, that was just totally bad, and I felt that was the same with Black Adam this week. I just don't get Black Adam though. I just think he's just a Shazam just in a black costume, and I really don't find him interesting enough to actually dive in and try and find out more of his story. But going on with Bane, I gave that one a 7. And the only thing I think of when I think back to this story is the Robot Chicken episode of the superhero, the DC superhero special. They have the running joke with Bane, like that's all that plays in my head is like the do, that's Bane. That's because he's just up to the same stuff. It's just him trying to lead some army, doing his Bane stuff. Like the only thing that comes off different is that he has a new costume. And that is kind of reminiscent to match Nolan's Bane, so I don't know what they're doing there. But moving on to what I think was the most anticipated of not so much the Villains Month, but definitely this week, and that was going to be Joker's Daughter. Now, I gave that one a 7. I was really looking forward to it just because of the build-up that DC had. At least a month ago, they released a sketch of her, and I was really interested to find out. I was waiting, trying to check on my issues, waiting for her to pop up. She finally popped up in Catwoman, and this time was her first standalone, so you gotta find out what happened. Maybe she'll redeem herself in the next Catwoman, because that's where it continues on, but wasn't really meeting my expectations on the build-up. But the one really weird thing was on the first page. Now, I said it's not going to be spoilers. Now, I don't think it is going to be a spoiler, what I'm about to say. If anything, it's going to be more incentive to pick up the issue and actually look for it. But for some reason, in the first page, Joker's daughter, she's like all hooded up, so you don't actually get to see her face yet, but she's underground, and she's like rummaging through all this trash, and she has this bag, and falling out of the bag, it's either falling out of the bag or she's like trying to stuff it in. Well, anyway, in the bag is 3CPO's head from Star Wars for some weird reason. Now, I know in Star Trek Into Darkness, R2-D2 was in there. He was actually flying out into space when some trash got ejected. That was actually recently brought up, but 3CPO chilling in Gotham up in Joker's daughter's bag, I don't know about it. So if anybody has any knowledge to that, let me know. But what the issue was, it was definitely not what I was expecting to see. It was a different story. It definitely showcased different parts of Gotham that you don't really get to see, and I think that's interesting because I really think that Gotham is in itself its own character. It definitely, I feel, is the greatest villain of them all because it's the house, it's what feeds them, it's the mother, the nurturer to all of these villains and Batman. So I feel it's the greatest power throughout the whole story, because without it, what do you have? You just have some people running around all crazy. But anyway, we have reached the end of Comics and Serial. Be sure to check out the next breakdown coming out next week. I hope you'd enjoyed this week's books as much as I have. If you'd like to check out my pull list, you can go ahead and follow along. Head on over to facebook.com/iwearearsgames. There I have it posted. So please be sure to share, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Again, I am I Wear Ears, and this has been G to the 3. Bye!